Hello and welcome to yet another episode on learning how to overcome sleepless nights. So, today on the show we have Luke who will be joining us and talking about his journey and how he is helping other patients overcome sleepless nights. So, let me check. Okay, Luke, you joined. Then, please accept it. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good, Luke. How about you?
I'm doing very good, thank you. It's nice and snowy here in Canada.
Okay. Okay. So, Luke, before other people join, maybe you could quickly, briefly introduce about yourself and then we'll start today's show.
Sure, I'm Luke Michael Howard. I'm a clinical hypnotist. It basically means that I am a chiropractor, but for the thoughts and the emotions inside people's minds and body. I've been doing this for about 25 years now. Typically, the people I work with are people that are in chronic pain, that have had pain for over 3 months. They've gone to their doctors. Their doctors pretty much exhausted most of the options. They've given them the medication. They've referred them off to somewhere else, but the doctor's pretty much like, there's not a lot more we can do. So that's typically the kind of people I work with. But I also work with a whole wide range of people like with your show that have a lot of anxiety and insomnia. And really what insomnia is in my world is taking anxiety to bed with them. So sometimes I'll get clients that will say, look, I have no anxiety at all. I'm very chilled, I'm very relaxed. And the reason is they don't deal with their anxiety. Then they go to bed, and their bedfellow is anxiety. So insomnia is always in what I do related to anxiety, and I'm healing that. Also, I work with every other kind of person, people with addictions, whether that be alcohol, whether that be cigarettes, whether that be sugar, sex, porn, obsessive thoughts, people with depression and sadness, basically anyone that's in a place here and they want to get here, but there's like a block in their way. I help them get rid of
Mhm.
that block so they can get the future that they want without suffering and pain, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, whatever that is to you.
Okay. That's really great about whatever you said. Okay. So, Luke, that was a very good introduction. So, let's start this. So, Luke, tell us a little bit about your journey, where how you started this struggle and how you started this process of learning to help people.
Yeah. So I am 44. I know it's hard to believe, or almost 44 on May the 8th. When I was young, before the age of 17, I had every problem you can imagine. The only problems I didn't have was I wasn't sexually abused and I wasn't addicted to drugs or alcohol. Other than that, I was obese. I was anxious before everybody was anxious. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was agoraphobic. I was claustrophobic. Horrible relationship with my parents. Horrible relationship at school. And when I tried and vowed to kill myself twice, and I'd gone through the traditional therapy route from about the age of 9 to about the age of 7, family therapy and therapy for myself. Nothing helped. Nothing changed in my life. And then when I vowed to kill myself twice, I was like, I better find a way to live and to make this thing called life work. So I got involved in hypnosis, and really, I've told the story a million times. But in the 90s, there was an audio cassette that was advertised in the back of a newspaper, and it's by a very famous hypnotist, the most famous hypnotist in the world at the time, a guy called Paul McKenna. And he had a show on network TV in England, where I'm from, every Monday at 8 p.m. And this is really before the internet. So I'm a kid, right? I'm a teenager. So what we see on TV, we think is real. So I'd watch this show, and it was like a dog and pony show. And what I mean by that is if you go and see a hypnotist live performing, and he makes this one dance like Michael Jackson, and this one sing like Madonna, and this one, when they sit on a chair, they think it's on fire and they jump up. It was that kind of entertainment show. But I'm like, if he can make all these people do all this silliness, maybe this could help me become confident and get over my issues. So I ordered this little audio cassette. So it's before CDs, before MP3s, before downloads, right? And I waited for 21 days, 3 weeks for this silly audio cassette to come. and it was called Supreme Self-Confidence. And because I had the total belief that this thing had to work, because I've been watching this guy for years on TV, hypnotizing people to do craziness. So I listened to it every day, and it was a one-size-fits all. It wasn't specific for me and my needs. It was a mass production. Because I like nothing else worked, and I had the total belief of watching this guy live on TV. I'm like, this is going to work. And that silly, generic audio cassette changed my life more than the last 8 years in therapy. So then I spent the next, 25 years almost, traveling the world, learning from people far smarter than me in hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, Huna, shamanistic healing. Anyone who's really good at helping people heal themselves. I spent way too much money, and here I am 25 years later. That's the fast version of the story.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting to know that a small change which fascinated you, you invested so much of money. Okay, money is one part of the equation, but you spent so much of time learning and from the people who know better than you, and now you are helping people. That's really a good thing. So Luke, so coming to the question, since you basically talked about the concept of insomnia, and people have this problem of anxiety. So, what are the typical symptoms which people talk about when they come to you when they talk about insomnia?
Yeah, so insomnia, a lot of people think insomnia is you have zero sleep. No. And sometimes people, well, I've got insomnia because I wake up every night at 4 a.m. and I'm awake for 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour. This is not insomnia. This is called the circadian, easy for me to say, rhythm that we all go through. So even someone that reports no sleeping issues at all will probably wake up on average 5 to 10 times every evening, every night they sleep. Now, this won't be a wide wake up. It might only be for a few seconds. It might be a few moments. But it's absolutely normal to wake up a few times each and every night. Where it becomes a problem is you wake up and you stay up. And then you start obsessing, oh my God, I've got to be up for work tomorrow at 8 a.m. Got a big meeting, got a big presentation. Oh, if I don't get my rest, how am I going to be able to deal with it? So this thing of us naturally waking up now gets hijacked by our emotional mind, our unconscious mind. The worry starts to come in, the anxiety. What if I can't perform so well at work tomorrow? What if I can't do X? What can't I do B? And suddenly you're ruminating all these thoughts, and suddenly you're playing these horrible movies inside your head where life isn't going so well, which exhausts you even more. And now it's like watching a movie on your screen. Generally, if the movie is action-packed, you're probably not going to fall asleep in it, although I did fall asleep in Black Panther one time in the cinema. But that's another story for another day. But you've got all these movies, it's speaking really, really fast, really, really big. And then you're exhausted. And then you've got to get up and you get up and you're exhausted and you don't feel rested. So oftentimes, like I say, it's a form of anxiety. All insomnia is taking anxiety to bed. It could be anxiety for many, many different reasons. So whenever I work with anyone on insomnia or any problem, to be honest, I do quite a big chunk on anxiety. How I define anxiety is it's a felt sense right now. You feel it. We feel it right now, but it's for an event that hasn't happened yet. That event could happen. It could equally not happen. We're feeling it now. No question about that, but it hasn't happened. I'm feeling anxious about waking up tomorrow morning. I'm feeling anxious about messing up my words in the presentation. I'm feeling anxious about speaking to that pretty girl over there. I'm feeling anxious that when I spar later on today, I don't get my butt kicked. So it's all for something that hasn't happened yet, but it could happen. So a lot of my stuff is helping people deconstruct this, deconstructing the anxiety, and not get them 1 minute into the future, not have them living 5 minutes in the past, but really being in the body, in the moment. So they start to get rid of the label of insomnia. By the way, this might upset some of your people, might even upset you. There's no such thing as insomnia. Equally, there's no such thing as anxiety. There's no such thing as chronic pain. But what I'm not saying is I totally appreciate people don't get to sleep well. I totally appreciate people's heartbeat and they might perspire when they have anxiety. I totally appreciate that someone might have a back pain, suffering that's been there for years, but someone slapped the label on a bunch of body mechanics, on a bunch of body sensations one day, and it was labeled insomnia. So now people often misuse that. So really what I do with clients, when they come in, Luke, I can't sleep, blah, 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 I'll be like, I'll get them to do something. And maybe you want to do this now, and maybe some of
Okay.
your watchers, viewers might want to do this now if it's safe to do it. If it's safe to do this, take your hand and put it onto a table in front of you. If you don't have a table, you can put it onto your lap. And you can do this if you want. I'll do it with you, right? I want you to describe the sensation of your hand on the table. Don't go into narrative, don't go into story, but the sensation, like it's soft, it's hard, it's hard, it's hot, it's cold. And maybe some of the viewers want to do this out loud or in their mind. If there's anyone around them, they might think they're crazy, but this is useful. So if your hand's on the table, describe in sensation words, how does that feel for you?
Yeah. So I'm putting my hands on my lap, and I can feel the my trouser, and I feel a little bit of warmth. Uh, yeah.
Excellent.
So
And what
that's
else? Do you feel warmth? What else do you feel? Sensation. Tell me more about the sensation of your hand on your lap.
uh, so I can feel the middle finger having exerting a little bit more pressure compared to the other fingers, because maybe it's rested more. So that's what I can think of.
Excellent. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just to help you along. Do you feel any pulsing? Do you feel any vibrating? Do you feel steady with that hand on your lap? What about the energy there?
Uh, so I can feel, yeah. So when you talk about the heartbeat, I can now, after a few minutes, I'm noticing the heartbeat, the pulse beat also. Yeah, coming to the energy, maybe I can see some energy flowing. So basically, because the blood is flowing, I can see some energy flowing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll just thank you. That will help people. I'll just cut it short. But typically, what I'll do is I'll do that with a lot of clients for far longer than we just did it with you. And most people, you started to do it. Everyone does it, even me. Hand on the table. Ask them to describe it in sensory words. Oh, well, my hand's on the table. Logical mind, not what I asked. Oh, well, it feels very tired. This is not a sensory thing, right? So it's like the train keeps going off the tracks. Everyone does it, by the way, including me. But my job,
Yes.
that's what insomnia is. I've got insomnia, I've got insomnia, I've got insomnia. So when I get people to do that little activity I just did with you, hand on the table, speaking in sensory words of what's really happening right now, I then get them to
Mhm.
map that across to their emotion, because they won't have insomnia in my office. And what I mean by that is it won't be 12 o'clock midnight and they're trying to sleep and I'm there waking them up. So we can't bring that up. But what I can bring up, not in my office in Zoom, because everything I do is over Zoom now, is I'll get them to bring up that anxiety in their body. So they'll feel it for not being able to sleep, yada, yada, yada. They'll start, oh, I feel anxious. Oh my God, I'm so worried. And remember your hand on the table. Yeah. So describe the sensation in the body in the same way you did with your hand on the table. Describe the sensation, how it's moving, the quality of it with this thing called anxiety. So then I've taken the label off of it, and all it is a bunch of biomechanical, biological things. Well, I feel hot. Well, the energy, I'm just paraphrasing, you've got this energy that I feel in my stomach and it feels quite tight. Then suddenly it goes to my solar plexus and I feel restricted breathing. Now it's going to my throat and I feel even more restriction. It's like a stone is in there. So we take the label off it, start to break it down into its components, and I'm just walking you through it. This could be a whole first session. This could kind of be a long process
Yes.
because most
Yeah.
people are not trained in this. We're all logical, labels, labels. Labels can be really useful at times, by the way. But when it comes to someone else giving us a label like insomnia, there's a bunch of inherent limitations that are built into it that we unconsciously accept. Well, I've got insomnia because I just didn't sleep good one night. No, you just didn't sleep good one night. You don't have insomnia. So when they start to describe it, I'll start to get them in touch with it. And let's say they say, look, I just feel this energy and there's this tightness here. And I'll be like, well, that tightness there, is there anything inherently to fear? Is there any threat present right now, that tightness in your throat? Most people will look at me like, what? What the hell are you, what does that even mean? So I'll coach them into it. And they'll be like, well, no, there's no inherent fear or there's no inherent threat of that tightness in my throat, chest, whatever it is. And I'll get that to link them back because it's just the components that build up this thing called insomnia, which is anxiety, which is fear for the future. So we can start to break it down in its components, the actual sensations, however they manifest in each and everyone's body, and they can see actually there's no threat, because oftentimes anxiety, which relates to insomnia, if you take it to bed, is linked to threat. There's an inherent threat. Goes back to our ancestry days. There's a big lion, tiger, bear, and it's about to eat us. We better run. That was a good reason to feel fear. That was a good reason to feel anxiety. Otherwise, we're going to be eaten up and we're going to be the bear's breakfast. However, when we're at home and we're pretty much safe, we've got a roof over our head. Here in Toronto, it's snowing like crazy right now, but I'm warm. I'm inside. There's no bears walking around. Maybe if I go to BC in the middle of the woods, but I'm safe. My head knows I'm safe. My body, someone with anxious, their body doesn't know they're safe. That adult mind knows I'm safe. I'm well fed, got shelter, got love. Brain knows that. Body doesn't know that. Body is what feels. Body is what feels the anxiety. Body is what causes the insomnia. So it's about really reprogramming, not their minds. A lot of people are like, Luke, can you reprogram my mind? I'm like, first of all, I can't reprogram anything. You're going to do all the work. Neither can you. But it's not useful to reprogram your mind, to be honest. But what I can get you to do, if you follow some simple instructions, is start to recode your body. Because when your body starts to feel, there's no threat when I go to sleep. Not just here, but the body is parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze. The parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. Body's like, I understand I'm safe. Body doesn't. Body's like, parasympathetic. I know I'm safe. And if I know I'm safe, it's all right to close my eyes now and rest peacefully.
Absolutely. I totally get it with the way you described about the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic. And yeah, I totally agree with you. When the problem is when people have the sympathetic nervous system, which you activate way beyond your parasympathetic nervous system, all kinds of issues. So it could be insomnia, it could be chest palpitations, or whatever may be the case. When you actually stop putting those labels. So I read it somewhere, Luke, and nothing has a meaning. Only the meaning you give it is the thing that makes thing.
Yeah.
So if you stop giving that, like you talked about the label, so yeah, just one bad night of sleep, that's it. Or maybe it could be like a month of bad night of sleep. But when I back then when I was struggling, I was so desperate to fix my problem that I started searching every hack that I could find on the internet and thinking that everything will solve it. But the thing is, what I didn't understand at that time was when I kept searching for the next hack, I was still adding to that fuel to that desperation. So the more fuel I add to desperation, the harder it became. But yeah, thankfully, I started the practice of meditation wherein I was able to stop adding fuel to the fire. And that is when game changed and I was able to stop putting those labels. And yeah, in fact, like you talked about, there are a couple of nights even now when I do have some bad night of sleep, but I don't give a label right now saying that, oh, what happened, why is it, and all those kinds of things. So Luke, my next question to you is: there are people who ask me this question multiple times, saying that how many hours of sleep is needed for the body? Because there is a lot of scientific. If you see, there are so many people who say that you should have 8 hours of sleep. So they complain saying that I'm on medication, but still I'm having only maybe like 4 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I know for years and years, everyone's like, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours sleep. By the way, someone made that shit up as well. Now, they may have had some scientific studies. Most of those statistics were made up as well to skew
Yes.
what they want to do. To answer your question, there is no ideal amount of sleep. An example of this, I'm training every day a couple of hours in mixed martial arts in the gym. My body might require a bit more than the average person. Average person who doesn't train every day. So maybe it needs 8 hours, maybe it needs 9, maybe it needs 10. However, we look at somebody like Vince McMahon, who runs World Wrestling Entertainment, Dana White, who runs the UFC. They're notoriously known for surviving for like 20, 30, 40 years as running these multi-billion-dollar companies on less than 4 hours of sleep every night and working at the highest possible level. Vince McMahon is 77. He's got a physique that puts most younger men to shame. Notorious. He thinks sleep is the enemy. The very fact that he has to sleep, he doesn't like it because he should have his time running the business even more. So it's however much that you need. So don't buy into this dogma that you should have 8 hours sleep. I've got this thing called a Cura ring, right? This ring right here. And it monitors my sleep. It monitors a lot of my biology that's going on. So it says how many times I woke up in the night, how long I was awake, how much time I was in bed, of that time in bed, how much was I in REM sleep, how much was I in deep sleep, how much was in... It's all really useful data. However, everyone's different. Like sometimes I have had a 15-minute nap, literally, like, and I woke up and I felt refreshed. Sometimes I've been in bed for 10 hours. I woke up and I've been stiff as hell. It's taken like an old car in the winter that needs a bunch of oil to start getting it going. So always, what I say is this: listen to your body, not my body, not someone's opinion, although that can be useful and it can be like a signpost to help you navigate around this thing called sleep and insomnia. But listen to your body. Oftentimes, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd still feel tired. And I'd be like, I didn't get enough sleep. That's why I still feel tired. And then I researched it a little bit, right? What I realized is the moment you wake up to the moment you're groggy, you're asleep. Then you start to wake up and you're a bit groggy, then you're awake. There's a term for it called, I believe it's hypnagogic. I believe that's the term for it. And it's that place between hypnosis and being awake, or that place between... And hypnosis basically means sleep in its Latin terms, although it's very different than sleep. But so you go from that state of being awake, of being asleep, to wide awake. And we often wake up and we're groggy. And I use that information. I thought, oh, that means I'm tired. No, it's my body transitioning from like first gear to second gear. There's a little space in between. It's absolutely natural. You wake up, you feel a bit groggy, then you start moving a little bit within a few minutes. You're ready to take on the day. So listen to your body, but not necessarily always your mind. Because sometimes our minds will play games on us. But oftentimes when we listen to our natural body and what's going on for us, it will give us all the biofeedback that we need. Biofeedback meaning do I need more sleep, less sleep, more food, less food, more light, less light, etc. So to answer your question, there is no one size fits all. You've got to really be in tune with your body.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with you. And this was the same exact answer which I got when I asked my psychologist, because like when back in 2019, I was very desperate, and I also wanted that magic number of some X number. And every time I fell short of X, then desperation started fading up. And that is exactly what my psychologist also told me, which is like every study that is done is hardly done on a max. Even if you take a sample size of 10,000, even in a country like India, we are 130 crore people. So you can't extrapolate that 10,000 onto 130 crore and say that this is going to be valid. And basically, we are not sheep or cattle where everybody is the same. In fact, our human brain itself has more than 80 billion neurons, and the number of possibilities, the permutations and combinations with that can be created are really uncountable at all. So like somebody else's sleep shouldn't be somebody else's number, shouldn't be the number which you should strive for. Yeah, and I totally get it. it can be used as a signpost, but yeah, you should be learning about how to give your body the necessary rest, or like you talked about the transitioning from the gear 1 to gear 2. So give your body the time to make the transition, and then you will see it. Yeah, and if it is not making the transition from gear 1 to gear 2, and it's asking you to go to sleep or asking you for rest, okay, give your body the rest. So our body has that innate intelligence. So in fact, there's a beautiful book called as The Body Keeps the Score. I think
Yeah,
you
you
might
know
have
that
known
body.
that.
I'm about halfway through. It takes a while to get through that body with that book because it's so dense in
Yes.
information. But yeah, Basil. I can't
Yeah.
middle initial, last
Yeah.
name. But yeah, yeah, no, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. The author's name is also a bit complicated, but yeah, what he talks about is this: when our body is in a state of you were talking about the anxiety part, right? So body keeps the score. Body wants to see, basically our brain has just 2% of the volume in the complete body, and it needs more than 20% of the energy resources. So what it does is it does something called as energy optimization. And even though it knows that you are going through this phase of uh, struggle or this anxious thought, it still goes in that phase because it's a familiar path to the brain, and it can conserve energy. So that is why it keeps going in this path. But you need to understand that all of this is just a label, and once your body knows that there is no danger as such, then the body can do the rest and digest thing, and it can heal itself. Yeah. So my next question to you, Luke, is like you talked about people who come to you with insomnia. So how do you help people who are with maybe, yeah, so I agree that everything is a label, but people who come with this label that I have chronic insomnia for more than some x number of years, and how do I heal myself? So what is your answer to this label, which is like chronic insomnia for x number of years, maybe 10 years, 5 years? So what is your answer for this?
So one of the things that most people will come to me when they're suffering from this label called insomnia is they've I'm not the first call. They've gone to the doctor, they've gone to the sleep clinic, they've gone to the counselor, psychotherapist. So they've typically tried hypnotist, change worker. Typically isn't the first person that they call, right? So they've gone through a bunch of stuff. What is everyone else try to do? Oh, try and relax tonight when you go to sleep. Have a warm bath. Listen to some meditation before. Everything is becomes what I call masturbating. Not masturbating, masturbating. Oh, I must sleep tonight. Oh, I must drink the chamomile tea before I go to bed. I must have the Epsom salt bath. Now, this becomes a whole process that fuels the anxiety. So, one of the first things I do is I get my clients to identify their masturbating, the musts that they put on the life, which on their problem, which just creates more of the problem. And I start to help them eliminate this thing called must. Because here's an example. If I say to you right now, you must relax. Say to yourself out loud, I must relax, and notice what happens.
Yeah, yeah, I know that.
What
What
when you
happens?
say that inside, what happens to you?
Yeah, so our brain, actually, my brain is thinking, am I relaxing or not? So if then it says, you idiot, he's saying to relax and you're not relaxing.
Starts to
So
yeah, starts to become a whole
then
process here. Oh, I must do it. Creates more tension. So first thing I do is help people with their masturbating habit. That's the first thing that I do. And the next thing I do is I do the opposite. And if it's safe, and I make sure it's safe for them to do it, and I don't tell my client what to do. I issue them a challenge. Are you up for a challenge? If they say yes, I'm like, you don't have to do this. Understand you don't have to do this. It's a near challenge. If you're up for it, great. If you're not, that's okay. Like, oh, great. Well, what's the challenge? I'm like, I want you to stay up for the next until you can't sleep. That might be a day. That might be 2 days. Obviously, don't be operating heavy machinery and driving around. You want to be in a safe place, right? But I want you not to sleep, and I want you to go as long as you can without sleeping. They're like, look at me like I'm frigging crazy, right? Like, what? Everyone else is told them to sleep, do this. No, I'm going to do the opposite. I want you to stay awake for as long as you can. The record I've had was I had a client that went 48, that's 2 days. I think they went 58 hours of staying awake. And my goal was you've got to stay awake for 3 days. Be safe, understand that, but you've got to be awake for at least 3 days. No naps, no micro naps, no closing your eyes for the next 3 days. If it's safe for you to do it, they're like, you up for it? They're like, sure. And the people I do it, and some clients don't, but the people that do it, even people that said, Luke, I've had chronic anxiety. I haven't had more than 2 hours sleep a night for the last 30 years. I have never had someone go more than 3 days without sleeping. I've even got testimonials on my website, because the game changes at that point. It's not about relaxing. It's, well, no, I want you to stay up, and I want you to stay up as long as you can. And eventually, the body's like, the hell with this, and it just sleeps, because we all sleep. We all have to sleep at some point. I think you can literally go, well, actually, you can go about a year without eating food if you're very morbidly obese. There's a guy who broke the record over a year, all right? You can go weeks without water, but you can only go a couple of weeks, I think about 10 days, with zero sleep, before essentially you get brain cancer. Sleep is so important. You have to sleep, otherwise you die. I've never, in 25 years of working with clients, and some of them having insomnia, I've never had a client who chose to take up the challenge, go more than 3 days without sleeping. I had some clients text me and say, Luke, it's day 1.5, and I failed the challenge, Luke. They're upset with me. I failed the challenge. I couldn't do 3 days. I could only do 36 hours, and I slept for 8 hours. First time I've been able to do this in 30 years. Because the game's changed. No, I want you to stay awake. You're staying awake? Great. I want you to stay awake as long as you humanly can. But no sneaky naps, no sneaky meditations that turn into naps. No, I mean, you've got to be awake. And no client ever, if they do it, none of them get past 3 days. And oftentimes, I kid you not, that's not all I do with clients, obviously. But that one little bit just there can self-correct the whole problem, because it turns it upside down. It inverts it. It now makes it a challenge, a fun challenge. Well, I'm just going to stay awake. This is no longer, oh my God, it's beating me. No, I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to stay awake all night. Your body's going to take over, and it's going to have to sleep. I don't care who you are, you're going to have to sleep. So that one little bit, again, I always use a disclaimer, as long as it's safe for you to do. If I offered people one little thing, it would be that thing. Oftentimes can correct the whole thing.
Okay. That's really interesting. Like the way you put it is to create a challenge of not sleeping. And I totally get it. The way you are building it up. So I was reading this. So I guess the CBTI, or the cognitive behavior treatment therapy for insomnia, also talks about this. Maybe some modified version of this, but it talks on the topic of sleep restriction. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. So audience, you have any questions for Luke? Because like Luke talked about, he has a lot of experience in helping people. So if you have any questions for Luke, you could add in your comments, or there's a question mark symbol, so you could ask those questions also. So meanwhile, Luke, so you talked about uh, insomnia. So this is one thing, look, which I have been hearing from people. So what is your take on this? People talk about this chest palpitations and having this burning sensation in the body. So how do you handle those kinds of situations, Luke?
Hand on the table. Get away from the labels: anxiety, depression, insomnia. What does it feel like? It's a burning sensation. It's a stiff sensation. It's a heavy sensation. It's a damp sensation. Whatever it is, and getting clients to realize: are you threatened right now? Are you in danger? Well, no. And then knowing no. I like, having that feeling of burn, that sensation of burning, does that put you in danger? Oh no, it's just a sensation. And then you have another sensation after that, which might be completely being cleared. You might have another sensation of being completely heavy. One thing I know about human beings is this: when we start to observe the sensations in the body, they always change. They always shift. Heavy, light, soft, hard, smooth, raggedy, open, closed, whatever the sensory words are that talk about your experience. So I've got this burning sensation, I've got this tightness sensation. You've got this burning sensation. You've got this tight sensation. Are you threatened right now? Are you in danger? No. And know that. Know that. What's the sensation now? Oh, it feels like there's some bubbling going on. But getting people to realize, guess what? I could get you to think of the most terrible things in the world happening to you and your family, like really like a horror movie, and you could really say it, and you wouldn't like to do it. I'm not saying you should do it, but you could make it as real as possible, have the most horrible, heinous things happen in your mind, the most negative, horrible thoughts, and none of it happens to you or your family. In the same way that you can, now, obviously, if you're going to have a heart attack, that's something different. Call the medical professionals right there. If it's a real, that's very different. But beating heart, whatever, just realize that it's just a sensation. And it's neither good nor bad. It just is. And it's going to change in a moment. It cannot not change. And knowing that all we are is we're changing all the time, is there any threat in that sensation? Is there any threat? I don't do it to play games with people. I want them not to get here because, oh yeah, look, I get it, which means they don't. I don't want them to get it here. It's not an head game. It's a body. No, but do you know? Oh yeah, I feel the palpitation. There's no threat. It's just palpitation. Well, I could do 100 jumping jacks right now. My heart's going to palpitate. I'm not in danger. I could run around my corridor right here. Heart goes up. I've still got the same sensation, the palpitation. Am I in danger? Oh no. There's no label. It just is. It just is. So getting people, I do jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So a lot of that stuff is being on the ground with a guy or a woman. We call it rolling. And we're looking to choke someone out, get a submission, an ankle lock. But really what it is getting used to being in uncomfortable positions and not just tapping out, not just surrender. It has nothing to do about being a tough guy or anything like that. It's about being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. A few weeks ago, I had a few days where I started to feel this thing called anxiety. I'm like, why am I feeling it now? I was having people on top of me, heavier than me, smothering me, not even submitting me, but all this weight. And I've never had a panic attack before. A lot of people say they've had a panic attack, but most people haven't. But I was almost having an out-of-body experience. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. This is really, really horrible. And I said to myself, if I'm going to keep coming back to these classes, I need to be able to deal with this. And I was reading this book, and it was by a famous MMA fighter called Hickson Gracie. And it was like, jiu-jitsu is about becoming comfortable in uncomfortable positions. So I've got this guy on top of me the next time, and I can't breathe. And I'm like, remember about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So rather than just being flat on my back, I just twisted my hips a little bit. So I had a second to breathe. I'm still in a really uncomfortable, precarious situation. Guess what? And I can breathe, and I'm not in danger yet because he's not going for the choke or the arm. Getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I'm not in inherent danger. Now, if he starts to grab his arm and go for a rear naked choke, I need to fight to get out of that. If he goes for a Kimura, grab my arm, but he wasn't. He was just trying to make me uncomfortable, which is part of the game. Be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Then we grow. Palpitations, yeah, it's going to go in a minute. Be okay with it. Don't strap a label on it. It will be okay. There's no threat right now. I know it.
Yes, I totally get it, like what you're saying. So Yeah, so the biggest learning for me from whatever you talked about is stop putting labels to things and just give the body the time and give your body the assurance that there is no danger and things will automatically settle is the biggest learning for me from whatever you talked about. So anyone has any questions? So there are few people who are there. So, Harish, I think last time you asked this question related to how many hours you should be sleeping. So, I think you got your answer. So, are you convinced with the answer that there is no magic number? uh, I don't see any questions, Luke, as of now. So, okay. So, yeah, thanks, Luke, for accepting the invite and being a part of this talk show. So, I had a lot of things to learn, and yeah, so as maybe sometime later, I will again invite you. Then we will talk about something else,
Yeah.
uh, like from your experience and from your wisdom.
And if anyone is watching this after the fact, they're not live, and they've got any questions, put them in the comments section, and I'll revisit it, and we'll happily answer any of your questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Luke, for the accepting this talk show opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. Always believe. Lukenosis.com.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Thank you all for being part of this live. So I guess there is someone hypnosis mentor. He's saying, "Hey, Luke."
Hey, hypnosis mentor, how are you?
Okay. Thank you all for being a part of this Insta Live where we talked about how you can overcome your insomnia. So basically, everything is a label. So once you stop giving that special importance to your label, you will be able to overcome your thing. And yeah, so you could try the exercise which Luke talked about, which is putting your hand on your table and just feeling the sensations as it is. Don't give any special importance to any other thing other than what you can sense. Okay, so if you stop giving any special importance to these things, you will emerge victorious, and the body has the intelligence to overcome all these challenges, and you will get over these things. Okay, thank you all for joining, and I'll meet you next week where I'll be talking with yet another guest. So the reason why I'm conducting this talk shows is to give the hope that the you need not spend your time in anxiety and desperation. So there are multiple people who have done it. So I'm an example. Luke has talked about his case where he has struggled with all the problems and he has overcome it. So there is a hope on the other side of tunnel. It's only that you have to approach the right set of people and take the help. So and be willing to be taking help. So many times what we have is we block and we just want to go with that same label. So stop having that label and you'll be able to overcome. Thank you all for joining and meet you again next week. Bye.